back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of the Auto Experience series. That's our review series featuring obscure cars, mostly some weird eclectic models that tend to have some kind of an enthusiast following usually. Well, at least I think they're cool. Today's example is a 2004 Subaru Forester XT. This is the second generation of Subaru Forester here in the United States, and the first generation that you could get the XT. In fact, historically, 2004 was the first year you could get the XT, which is the turbocharged variant. That does mean we're working with a 2.5 liter dual overhead cam EJ engine with a turbo. So that's a lot of fun. Making this even rarer is the manual option. So we have a 5-speed manually equipped car here. But XTs of this vintage are pretty rare. I think I read somewhere where it's 10% of the total Forester production numbers were XTs, and then a smaller percentage of that obviously came with the manual. So a manual XT, pretty rare to find, especially in stock condition, because these things got modified as they take all the STI and WRX parts from the vintage era pretty well. So no fault to anyone that goes that route, but it is extremely rare to find a factory one like this. These things were super cool. They had good power, all-wheel drive, so they were totally functional. It's literally a lifted wagon version of an Impreza. So at this time, the Forester was exactly shared with the Impreza platform. The interior has some unique stuff. We'll cover that in the interior section. It's pretty rugged looking in here, and really good materials that stand the test of time and take that off-road adventure lifestyle beating. This model we're driving today has 208,000 miles. I am the third owner, so it's had long ownership periods. It was driven plenty during both. So that's always a good sign. Those vehicles tend to be maintained well, and this one is no exception. Like I said, these things are hard to come by. It took a little work to get her all polished up like she is now, but I'm loving this thing. I've always thought these were cooler. These are definitely the coolest version of the Forester, I think. I think this is the best generation. It's the most quirky, interesting looking style, combined with pretty good overall reliability. The EJ dual overhead cam turbo is a pretty stout engine, as long as you stay on top of maintenance, and it likes to stay stock. I hear you, stage guys, I hear you. Aside from that, yeah, it's just really fun. It's super spacious, super functional. I mean, there's tons of space in the back. I can sit in the back seat comfortably. You can throw a bunch of gear in there, seats fold down. It's just a really useful vehicle. Handling is, yeah, okay. It has that Subaru kind of slow to react steering rack, but the grip is there, and the mechanical grip is certainly there with the all-wheel drive system. It's a hoot clawing out of corners with that all-wheel drive and your turbo coming on boost at the right RPMs. It's an experience. It literally drives just like a WRX from the same period. So if you're familiar with that platform, which I am, I've owned, this is my 7th Subaru at this point in my life. Pretty familiar with them, and this just feels the same way as that 2 liter or 2.5 liter turbocharged application. Yeah, these have a bit of a cult following, and for good reason. They're just super cool, they're super functional, and they look great. I think they've actually aged quite a bit. They kind of looked a little weird back in the day when they came out, but now it's really developed into its own, and it looks good. As long as you stand back, you take in the proportions as a lifted wagon, all-wheel drive turbo vehicle, in its own right, that's cool. How about the market on these Forester XTs? They kind of are pricey, and they're definitely more pricey than their WRX counterparts. Like I said, probably 95% of them you're gonna find of the XTs for sale are gonna be automatics, and that kind of takes the fun out of it. That the 4 AAT transmission, not one of my favorites, but it gets the job done for the most part, and it's a pretty good transmission, I guess. But you really want to option for this as we roll our own gear. 5-speed manual, it's really the way to go, but they are far and few between. And like I said, especially the manuals, they like to be modified. So your cup of tea, right? Do you want a stock vehicle, or do you want something that's had a little, you know, more performance added to it? If you're looking for stock manual XTs, boy, the prices, I want to say 10K is probably right where you want to be right now, and that's going to have some mileage on it, probably need a little maintenance, which they all do, but that's going to get you there, right around 10K. So the market's strong for these. It always has been. It is a scarcity, rarity type deal, and they do have a serious following. So, you know, should you get one? Absolutely. It's kind of a do-everything kind of vehicle. It can be fun, rewarding to drive, really cool, interesting looking, totally functional. I mean, what else are we gonna say? But we're up here in the canyons. We're gonna have a fun day of driving this thing, and I can't wait. But before we do all that, we gotta shake it down, see if this thing has some acceleration chops, see if it's still kind of sporty. So you know what that means. On to the objective tests. We have the Forester XT up on the scales. Let's go ahead and get that curb weight and front and rear balance. Weighing in at only 3,188 pounds, I was somewhat shocked that the Forester XT came in at that weight. I always thought they were more of a 3,400 to 3,500 pound vehicle. With a front-rear weight distribution of 57% in the front, 43% in the rear, the Forester XT is actually quite balanced for a vehicle of this type. The all-wheel drive system does kind of balance out that bias towards the front. One would not describe the steering feel of the Forester XT as being sharp. As mentioned earlier, there's a slight input delay after turning the steering wheel before the actual wheels turn in. You adapt to this after a while, but it's still somewhat alarming to those not expecting it. In the feedback department, the hydraulic rack does allow for a clear communication channel through the corners and over roadway imperfections. The chassis is fairly stiff, especially for a lifted vehicle, and the level of mechanical grip is quite high given Subaru's fantastic all-wheel drive system. I forgot how awesome it feels to be in a turbo all-wheel drive vehicle in the canyons and throttle down through the apex. Clawing out under boost is also such a rewarding feeling. The early Gen Foresters were often criticized for looking old in design, even when they were new. But I feel as if this generation Forester, especially the XT variant, has come around back to cool territory. It's all about perspective, and the perspective I choose to view it from is that it's a lifted wagon. It's long and muscular, with bulging panel work. It's sporting the fast Subaru trademark, an amazing hood scoop, south of which is a somewhat aggressive rally-themed bumper, complete with oversized fog lights strikingly similar to those on the Bug-Eye WRX. The rear is flat and falls away to a wavy diffuser surrounding an almost aftermarket-looking beefy muffler. The Forester XT is a fun design that looks purpose-built for that adventurous lifestyle Subaru tries to sell. The adventure lifestyle theme continues to the interior with hardy and robust materials throughout. Nothing feels cheap, and certainly everything here has withstood the ravages of time. Highlights are the perforated vinyl material and the thick textured cloth upholstery. I've never seen an interior on one of these seem worn out, save for the leatherette trim on the seats, which this example has avoided for the most part. The cargo netting acting as a map pocket adds additional adventure flavor. Storage is also plentiful, with cool dash topping cavity and dual sunglass storage. How doesn't every car have this? I'm a massive fan of how this interior blends function with design and presents a solidly built, adventure-themed interior. Lifting that hood scoop adorned bonnet reveals a 2.5-liter dual overhead cam flat 4 boxer engine, complete with turbocharger. In this application, the EJ255 outputs 210 horsepower and 235 pound-feet of torque. The engine revs to 6,500 RPM, 500 RPM shy of its stablemate, the WRX and STI, but is still plentiful enough to accelerate the Forester XT quite briskly. If your taste is for more power, then modifications are readily available and can seriously bump up the performance. The torque feels very strong and steady throughout the rev range and really allows strong acceleration at corner exit. The 5-speed manual gearbox harnessing all of that horsepower and torque may not be viewed as the most dependable and stout unit, but it's the clear enthusiast option over the automatic. Throws are fairly long, but hurried gear shifts at redline didn't phase it at all. Like most Subarus of that era though, downshifts to first gear are preferred at near stops. The clutch pedal feels soft and somewhat vague, but makes for easy operation in stop and go traffic. Having to grab third gear to hit 60 miles an hour is a little harsh on the performance numbers, but the gearing feels great in almost all other circumstances. Is the Forester XT Subaru's best Swiss Army knife? A lot of vehicles make bold claims as to how they are jacks of all trades, but in reality, they tend to make some rather large concessions in a few areas. The second-gen Forester XT brings a lot to the table. For fun, it comes powered with the WRX's flat-4 turbocharged engine. To back up its adventurous-oriented design, it packs Subaru's solid all-wheel drive system and a healthy amount of ground clearance. For utility, the Forester has a near-cavernous interior, especially for its class, and boasts truly amazing and safe outward visibility. As far as one-car solutions go, you can do a lot worse than what is offered here, and even nearly 2 decades later, this 2004 Subaru Forester XT really is a do-it-all Swiss Army knife vehicle.